Good day, class. Today we are looking at digital media convergence, lesson 15, focusing on digital media literacy. To recap lesson 14 from digital media convergence, we developed a critical understanding of the consequences of changes in content creators on the South African radio industry. We showed a critical understanding of the future of radio by evaluating opportunities created by podcasts, and we pointed out key factors that they can recall. So are there any key factors that you guys can recap on today from the last lesson? Just note those down. It is a good skill to just note certain key factors down when doing reviews for lessons. Okay, so quick class discussion and recap. Students did research and now can give their input on the consequences of anyone being able to produce radio/podcast content. Okay, so obviously last week we discussed this. And obviously in class and on the online lessons, we will then put this question out to the students and have a short discussion about it. All right, so looking at the lesson objectives for today on lesson 15, they are understand digital media literacy, discuss the importance of digital media literacy, critically explain the role of digital media literacy in the context of citizen journalism. You guys will notice we've covered citizen journalism quite a few times. It is a very good area to look into when looking at digital media convergence and how it can influence you as the everyday busy bee. And then we participate in discussions regarding their digital footprint and how they consume media, develop a critical understanding on how to evaluate media sources and to become more digitally literate, and then apply digital media literacy skills to your everyday life as a user of digital technology. All right, so another class discussion. Think about all the ways that you use technology in your personal life. Okay, so this is obviously things that you do every day. What technology is that you use? Is it your PC? Is it a desktop? Is it your cell phone? Are you still using an iPod? Do you have a separate camera from your phone, etc.? Do you use these things? And then who do you interact with digitally and how do you do this? Okay, so let's say, for example, you have a friend overseas. You can WhatsApp them, you can send them messages on Instagram or Facebook, etc. They don't necessarily obviously need to be at a distance. It can also just be anyone. You can live with the person. You message them, tell them you're leaving the house or anything like that. How do you go about this? And then now think about yourself as a student and the ways you use technology for learning. So obviously the first example that should come to mind is the fact that you are watching this lecture online, and it's also a recording that I have then uploaded. So that is one way that you guys use technology for learning, and then obviously there are multiple other ways. Okay, so what is digital media literacy? So digital media literacy is made up of different literacies, and they are related to digital technology, which include firstly the information literacy, then it's media literacy, computer literacy, and digital literacy. I think you guys all have an idea of what computer literacy is. So these are necessary components of what it means to be literate in the 21st century. That is very valid because majority of our jobs, studies, or anything like that does require for us to make use of technology and to interact with it. So that is why they say that it is a form of being literate in the 21st century. Obviously, literacy or being literate in the past was the ability to read and write. So what is digital media literacy? We're going to continue on with that. Here's a few definitions of the components that we've listed on the previous slide. Looking at information literacy, the ability to locate, identify, retrieve, process, and use digital information optimally. And then media literacy, the ability to access the media, to understand and to critically evaluate different aspects of the media and media content, and to create communications in a variety of contexts. So what I want you guys to note here is the ability to evaluate different aspects. So just because you are able to use social media or media, create content and consume it, doesn't necessarily mean that you're media literate. You need to be able to evaluate the media that it is you're consuming and break it down into different aspects. And then the third one is computer literacy, A set of user skills that enable active participation in a society where services and cultural offerings are computer supported and distributed on the internet. Okay, so computer literacy is basically your entry level of, do you know how to get onto the internet? Can you download PDFs? Can you create PDFs, etc.? Kind of like the basics that we learned at school as students. Obviously not when you took IT at school or anything like that. Just the general basics that they have taught us gives you the tools and skills on how to use a computer. And then number 4 is digital literacy. Those capabilities which fit an individual for living, learning, and working in digital society. Okay, so continuing on with that, this was viewed primarily as the functional skills and competencies that people needed in order to use computers and the internet. Digital literacy is a life skill that not only increases employability, so again, it is very important for people to have this because, for example, it increases your employability, but serves as a catalyst that enables the acquisition of other important life skills. So here we can look at maybe you want to do an online course for something. If you aren't able to access information, produce information, consume it, and things like that in an appropriate manner, it will definitely prohibit you from doing that online course. Yeah. And then the capabilities which fit someone for living, learning, and working in a digital society. Okay, so the capabilities outlined by JISC in 2015 with regards to media literacy. So they looked at it as information, media, and data literacy, which is of critical use. Digital creation, scholarship, and innovation is creative production. Digital communication, collaboration, and participation, that's extremely important. It falls under participating. Digital learning and personal/professional development, this falls under learning. And then digital identity and well-being, this is your self-actualization. So they then went on to say digital capabilities identified here propose a particular mindset, a way of being. In particular, the last 3 capabilities outlined the abilities to engage in participatory culture, to a lifelong learning, and to manage a professional digital identity. Okay, so obviously the participatory culture is very important because that is definitely something that is only recently, when I say recently, it could be 1 to 2 decades, it's become extremely popularized with the internet and our ability to respond and interact with culture. And culture or any media that's put onto the internet. Okay, so IGI Global defines digital literacy as digital media literacy combines the properties of media literacy with the technological capabilities of digital literacy. In order to be digital media literate, one must be able to critically consume and creatively produce multimedia text using digital technologies. So this could be along the lines of captions, images, videos, reels, etc., etc. And then the ability to understand, access, evaluate, and analyze types of avenues of information created online or with available software and hardware to communicate and participate in civic life as competent media consumer, contributor, and creator of media in the online community. Okay, so again, something that's quite important here is analyze types. So it's not only the ability to take part, to consume, and to create, but it's also that aspect of analyzing the types, going into more depth with it. And then they define digital media literacy as the changing of the new communication technology, experiences, and adapting media literacy to digital media literacy education that functions for youngsters to accommodate themselves to the digital media usage process. Quite a mouthful there. And then number 4 is the ability to navigate, listen, access, and ask pertinent and focused questions to understand and make meaning of content leverage in the digital world. So what's our responsibility here? So I want to encourage you guys to please click onto the link here and watch the TED Talk through, where they discuss our responsibility with being media consumers and things like that. So to keep up with the overwhelming flow of information in our lives, we need to understand how to evaluate our media sources. So again, that word evaluate has come up again. We need to become media literate. It's not difficult, but it is our responsibility as individuals to look with a critical eye at the information we consume and share. All right, so here you can maybe think about fake news, sharing of incorrect information, etc. In the video, great tips and tricks on how to distinguish between real and fake news and what you can do. Okay, so obviously if you're watching a recording of this, please do follow the link to get to the other YouTube video and view that. Okay, so a quick little class discussion once we watched the video. So what tips and tricks have you learned? Have you applied any of these in the past? Will you make use of the tips and tricks that you've learned today? And can you add any other tips and tricks that haven't been mentioned? Obviously, everyone has limited knowledge to an extent, so maybe there were any tips and tricks that they had mentioned or that they didn't mention and you'd like to build on that or discuss it with the class. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Media literacy can be the differentiating factor between, firstly, citizen journalism. So citizen journalism is the intentional sharing of information of public interest to educate, inform, debate, or engage with fellow citizens. Okay, and then the second one is your everyday user-generated content. This mostly includes activity on social media, posting a photo, etc. So just because you use social media and you post on there doesn't automatically mean that you're a citizen journalist. You don't intentionally share information that has a goal of educating, creating debate, informing, or anything like that. If you do, then you can be viewed as a citizen journalist. So it's very important for us to understand media literacy when it comes to this so that we can identify the difference between these two. And why is it important for all of us to know when something is real or not? Okay, so again, there was a short little discussion about this in the video, but we will be adding onto it from other resources. Citizens who possess media analysis skills to judge information content before passing it on will produce more accurate citizen journalism. All right, so if you are sharing information that a citizen journalist has shared, or you yourself are the citizen journalist, you need to be able to analyze the information that it is that you're sharing or posting to avoid sharing fake information or false information or misleading information. And that is why it will create for more accurate citizen journalism. So let's say, for example, someone has decided to share a story about birds being robots. I'm sure maybe some of you are familiar with that conspiracy theory. And it then spreads like wildfire because people are unable to critique the information and analyze it and go, well, I doubt that, I have a bird. They're definitely not a robot, whatever the situation is. So if the audience is informed on how to analyze information, on how it's real and how it's fake, that story would not spread like wildfire because people would not be sharing it. Okay. And then citizens who understand social and political issues will have a better ability to judge what information may be of interest to others. All right. So this is also focused at what information is that you're sharing, where are you sharing it, and who is your target audience? Do they have access to that? So you're not necessarily going to share a cheesecake recipe on a group that is directed towards people who are lactose intolerant. I know it's an extremely silly example, but it's quite on the nose. So it is important for you as a citizen journalist and as a citizen to understand social and political issues. So again, so that misinformation isn't spread and so that the information that can reach the audience that it is intended for. And then citizens educated about the ethical responsibilities of sharing information online will engage in a more productive way. This is also extremely important. Sharing information that could possibly be unethical or you've obtained information in an unethical manner, etc. that is also extremely important, not only for us as consumers, but also for us as content creators. It is extremely important for us to understand and to know what content can we share and what can't we share, what are the ethics that go behind this, etc. And then media consumers must understand the value and potential risks of information from citizen journalists. All right, so again, let's look at maybe the robot bird story. If people share that willy-nilly, it could possibly lead to an excess amount of birds now being abandoned with the SPCA or anything like that. Obviously, the story has become extremely serious, but that is more or less how it could go. I'm sure many of you may have engaged with stories during COVID lockdown in 2020 about, it was of course fake news about how your pets can then carry COVID and pass it on, etc., and that your pets will make you ill or anything like that. And people began to abandon their pets out of fear of contracting COVID from their pets, that kind of thing. So there was a lot of misinformation that went about with that, and actually led to real life consequences and risks. So before we share any information, we need to know, is this real? Is this misleading? Is it, backed by research and legit and credible resources? And then we need to understand the social, political, and economic influences on media content created by social media users. Okay, so that's also quite important. We need to understand. So let's say we look at economic influences. If we look consuming content and we see that they're using a specific beauty product or anything like that, a lot of us refer to them as influencers. There's obviously an economic influence there where it could cause you to spend money or anything like that. And then obviously you get political and social, which are quite straightforward. Okay, here's actually quite a fun little activity. I do encourage you guys to go and click on the link. It could take you anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes. It truly just depends how far with the game you want to go, etc. It actually teaches you how to become a credible source whilst sharing fake information, and it then teaches you what words to pick up on, etc., etc. It's extremely insightful, and it's actually quite fun. Like, you get very much into it, and you actually want to become a genuine con artist throughout the game. Like, you're really trying hard to win it, and then it will show you your percentage at the end and how you compare to other people who played the game. All right, so that is the end of this lesson. It was quite a quick lesson. Obviously, looking at the game and all the class discussions, the class will be much longer when we conduct the lesson in class. So, yes. Okay, so looking at the next lesson teaser, we're going to discuss the media audience of news, television, and or radio content as a product consumer and a producer. We're going to critically explain how media audiences, users, consumers have changed due to digital media technologies. We're going to understand and discuss news consumptions across multiple media platforms. And then we're going to critically explain changes in television and radio audiences. Okay. So with regards to news consumption and television and radio audience, we have touched on this in past lessons, but the following lesson will take just a little bit of a different angle and will also serve as a good recap for you guys. Here are all the resources that I've used for this lesson, and I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to contact your lecturers if you have any questions.